I want to talk about the Coliseum Effect. First, let's talk about why people tell stories. There are two ways that we write fiction. On the one hand, we write fiction purely to entertain ourselves. We are our own audience, and whatever is good writing is what is interesting and entertaining to ourselves. And in many ways, this is how we can produce the best writing that we possibly can produce. As long as we're getting the feedback, we're in a feedback loop where what we're writing down is encouraging us to write more, and we're getting excited to continue on with the process, and we make decisions. The decisions we make to make our storytelling better immediately give us more energy to continue writing. So if we haven't come up with the right decision yet, it slows us down, and in the back of our mind we're kind of thinking, oh, it isn't going to quite work that way, until we come up with something that is a good storytelling decision and keeps us going, writing the story. Either that, or we're writing for other people, and this is all a matter of second guessing. And yes, it has all the limitations that second guessing has. We never can really know the way the story will play out for another person, and when we're writing in that way, it is a necessary artificialness to it, in that we're doing it to please someone else, and we're this is a lot of the time where we many times in fiction there might be things in a fiction that appear just to please the audience, and it's still a part of good writing and effective writing, but it has its limitations. And as an example, the big guns, Hollywood, all of the multi-million entertainment industries around the world, many of them will have groups that they'll bring in, and they'll show them the movies, and these groups fill out surveys and write out little essays about what was good, what did they like, what didn't they like about the movie, what about the actors. These trial viewings have been notorious for, there have been some amazing movies that didn't necessarily fare so well in the trial viewing. So there's a lot of guesswork involved in this sort of thing. And we, the writers, for me, it isn't necessarily so much fun to be in that mode where I'm second guessing for an audience. I'm much happier when I'm just writing and I'm having a great time writing stuff that is fun for me to write. So it is very important, if you want to be a good writer, it's very important to be able to go in that mode where you're second guessing for the audience, for a number of reasons. A good writer is someone who has developed a great ability to understand how to make their writing readable. In order to do that, the bottom line is that you need to develop a sense for how that writing appears on the outside. Just one example, you could be writing something and it could be very meaningful to you because of the experiences you have had. If you live on a street where there are 3 red signs, and in your writing appears this motif, the 3 red signs, and every time it comes up in your writing, it's very rewarding to you to read it because you have had experiences that elevate that writing. But if you don't bring experiences to people who are reading your writing, that may fall flat for them. To them, it is not going to give them the same experience as it gives you. So some things that you write could be extremely meaningful to you because of your particular experiences, But if no one else has had those experiences, the writing is not going to do the same thing for them. That's just one minor reason why it's important to write for an audience. So I always find myself getting a little antagonistic about writing for an audience, the whole second-guessing nature of it. But on the other hand, I found that it can be very interesting to look in ways of becoming a better writer through developing a sense for an audience and taking some of the guesswork out of it and developing systems to where I can improve my writing and not feel like I'm just trying to pull one over on the reader or just put it in there because you know that that'll work and that sort of thing. And I'll even do a little bit of that because, you know, you may, I mean, if you're going to put a bunch of gears together, you may as well put some oil on it to get the gears rolling. If you're going to try to enchant your audience with a story, you might as well use one or two things in there that you know is going to draw them in, get them interested in your story to where you can show them the real essence of your story. You know, pull them in with a little bit of, you know, what you know everyone's going to like, and then you know, as you win them over with those tried and true and often cliche techniques, then you can show them the essence of your story. But one thing that is helpful is to kind of look at the meta of fiction writing. Ask yourself, a great way to write for the audience is to ask yourself, why do we even have fiction? Why do people even flock to fiction? Why do people think in terms of storytellings? Why do people tell stories in their own head? What is going on here? And as we answer these questions, we come up with techniques that improve our writing, because it'll improve it in a way that'll make it readable not just to yourself but to the audience, to everyone else, everyone you show the writing to. Let's just imagine that hundreds of years ago there were peoples who built houses. Some of them built houses on the elevated sides of the hills, and others built their houses down at the base of the hill. And then there's a flash flood, and it wipes out the people who built the houses at the base of the hill. Now, while this is happening, everyone who is huddled in their houses up the hill are, you know, opening the shutters and peeking through, and they're seeing the people in the houses being washed away in this horrific flash flood. And what is happening is there is a lesson being learned. For those who have survived, they have learned a valuable lesson, and it's a very costly lesson. For hundreds of years afterwards, that group of people are going to fare better. They're going to survive better. And because they had learned a lesson to always build the houses up on the side of the hill and not down at the base of it. And this lesson that carried on through the generations came at a real cost, a cost of human lives. Half the population was wiped out. So now for those people who were in the flash flood, who were up on the hillside looking down and seeing that, there was a very certain kind of psychology going on. We humans were mortal. We're very vulnerable to all kinds of things, diseases. You know, we could end up losing shelter, a way of getting food, having things go wrong in the society that we keep, getting tangled up in conflicts. It just goes, the list goes on and on and on. And not so much in our conscious mind, but our subconscious mind is very on the lookout, is always concerned about all the things that could interrupt the good things in our life, that could rock our boat, that could weaken our foundation. And we're always on a very subconscious level, we're always on the lookout. So those people who survived the flash flood, when they were seeing that, they were seeing the edge of their own mortality. They were seeing they were identifying with those people in the flood, and they could go through that experience. They weren't just seeing it objectively, they were putting themselves in the place of the ones dying in the flood, and yet they didn't have to personally lose their lives in order to see the limits of their own mortality. So part of the human condition is that we want to know what our limits are. We want to know how, what it's like close to the edge, where things can go wrong, or where we can lose our lives, where we've strayed from the way that provides the most security, the most well-off life. We're interested about what would happen in those danger zones. What is it like? Because the more that we know about the limits, the better off we are, the safer we are. And so there's this dual intention in our subconscious. We want to know, but we don't want to know. We want to go there, but we don't want to go there. So here we are we each are making our own decisions to lead the best life we can. And we're always looking around us, and we see other people who, through mistakes, suffer real injuries. And every time we gain from that, we learn from that. And also we put ourselves in their place. We're able to visit the danger zones without actually getting harmed because we are identifying with them. We aren't just seeing them as an other, but we place ourselves in their place, and we get a sense for what that feels like. This is a part of human nature, to not just see others objectively, but to also put ourselves in their place. This is the way we learn and thrive individually and in a society. My all-time favorite neurons, the sympathetic neurons. So we have these cells in our brains that, okay, let's say that you show up at a new job and someone is teaching you how to assemble one particular object, and you're watching them. Now, you're not just seeing how they're doing it. Studies have shown that the cells that are firing in the person who's assembling it, those same cells are firing in the one observing. So just by observing, you're having a very similar experience as if you were doing it yourself. These sympathetic neurons are a way that humans become smarter in a society. So the people on the hillside watching the people drowning below, they had a very strange experience where there was a portion of their brain that was going through the same experience as the people drowning and learning that lesson, and yet they lived to survive another day. And their sympathetic neurons were teaching them the edge of their survival. They were learning. They walked away from it having a greater understanding about what they could do to live well and keep from dying. So let's turn back on our personal virtual reality imagination machines and go a few hundred years further in the future, still thousands of years before today. And let's look at one example, the Colosseum. Now I want to talk about the Colosseum Effect, and let's look at what is happening here. So these are people that will go and watch people kill each other and get killed by lions and all kinds of terrible things. An important part of what is happening here is that the people in the audience are confronting that dual nature. They are learning more about the edge of their own survival without paying the cost. They are the spectators. They are the ones who, so while these things are happening, they feel themselves down there facing, needing to fight to survive another day. And it is it is teaching them and it is informing them, and there is still a great cost. There are real human lives, and I hope that no one would even wonder why that sort of thing is illegal in most parts of the world today. It fulfilled a role that fiction fulfills today, and even like boxing and wrestling. So we have the Coliseum as an example, but let's not restrict it to just fighting for life and death. Let's broaden, let's use this idea, the Colosseum Effect. We can use this concept to improve our writing. But the Colosseum Effect could be about a story. It could be a romance, a lover's triangle, where you have the jealous one trying to use trickery to thwart the romantic plans of one individual. This is still a struggle. It isn't for life and death. It isn't using weapons and sheer force of fighting power, but it's still a struggle. It still involves scenarios of power, some kind of power play. The Colosseum Effect in fiction, the viewers, when they're watching a situation and their gut response is they wouldn't want to be there themselves, and when you're watching the fiction, you have this, your sympathetic neurons are going off and you're feeling yourself in that place, especially if there's a compelling protagonist that draws the viewer, reader right there in the middle of those scenarios. You can without suffering the real life consequences, you can learn from those situations. The irony about dangerous situations and those edges of our own well-being is that those are the places where we do the learning the most. Everyone starts out a rookie. Even Siddhartha was a rookie at one time before he eventually achieved Buddhahood. So the fact is that we learn through mistakes. You go in and you've never done it before, and it just takes practice. It takes a lot of, not like a noticeable mistake, but let's say that the first time you do it and it takes 10 minutes, and the next time you do it, it takes 9.5 minutes. Well, on a very minute level, there was some kind of, you might have just learned how to lift it faster or something, and so you might not think of it as a mistake, but it still is the same thing. When you learn how you get a sense for how you didn't do it correctly the first time and how you can do it better the next time. That's how learning from mistakes. That's learning from mistakes. Because of, as an example, our sympathetic neurons and then in general the way we're structured as living creatures, we can learn from others' mistakes. So if one person makes a mistake or does a certain way that could be improved upon, those around that individual also get smarter, learn. The individuals who saw that mistake learn as if they had gone through it themselves. Okay, let's imagine another situation. So you have a people's living, and they have their town and they're, but there's one individual who likes to go out into the wilderness, and that individual faces danger a lot more often. They run into lions. They are walking along and they notice all kinds of different dangers, and yes, they have a limp. One time in a battle with a lion, got wounded and has a limp. But there's one day that a lion that is twice the size of all other lions, and particularly ferocious during a time of famine, invades the village and wants to go on a killing spree. That one individual is the one who can conquer the lion, because they are the ones who have placed themselves in danger. And because of this reality is one of the reasons why we have this strange desire to go to places of danger, to make mistakes, to go to the unknown, when we're walking along and we know that we're surrounded by, it's, in analogy, it's a ledge, and we don't want to fall off that ledge of mortality and die, but we know that it's there. We know that there are things surrounding our existence that we shouldn't do lest we die, and we want to find out what our boundaries are, and what better way to do that than to go near them and try to feel them out and find out. We will feel better if we know more about what they're about, and we'll feel more secure if we have a better understanding. We'll feel safer if we have a better understanding about what the dangers are. Now, when thinking about the Colosseum Effect, remember, it does not have to be about life and death. It could be about whether or not the protagonist finds a place they can call a home, or whether or not the protagonist becomes a music rock star, or a number of things. But there is a danger there, not necessarily for life or death, but for all the other things that people could want to have happen, or are afraid will happen. The days of the Coliseum, or even the times of public assassinations, great public spectacles, crowds and crowds of people would gather to watch these horrific things. And so they were getting a better sense of their own mortality. They were getting to understand exactly what mortality meant, and they were safely seeing what it looked like and felt like at that edge. But a problem here is that, because we're social animals, the whole Coliseum and public execution thing is essentially a very antisocial practice. So the viewers had to have a disconnect. They had to dehumanize the ones unfortunate enough to be in the pit. And so this, whereas in fiction, if you have a scenario like a Colosseum, your readers and viewers can gain from learning what that edge is like, what those dangerous places are like, and they can have their curiosity satisfied. And we can't help but be curious about what is harmful to us, because that is a big part of how we learn and survive. And at the same time, we don't have to dehumanize these characters, and we can actually feel compassion, because we aren't playing a part in their demise. We don't have to hate them. These are fictional characters, and we can put them in the worst situation, the situations we would least like. And it could be someone on Wall Street losing all of their money. It could, whatever worst situation, you can put your fictional characters in the worst situation, and your viewers reap the benefit, very similar to someone who goes and watches a killing in a Coliseum, without the guilt, without the hate, without the dehumanizing, and actually in place of that, the compassion, because a reader of Oliver can look at homelessness and these situations, these very real, dangerous, bad life situations, and they can fully identify with the characters going through those situations that we as humans fear the most, and having a sense of compassion for the characters. So the Colosseum Effect in fiction is you're putting your characters in the worst scenario. You're torturing them. You're killing them off. You're doing all those things to them that are the last things that they want to have happen to themselves, that the viewer would ever want to happen to themselves. And it's a situation where it's a win-win situation. The fictional characters aren't real, no lives were lost, no animals were tortured in the making of this film, no guilt, and so the viewer-reader can safely take themselves to the danger zone and learn from it without actually having to go there for real, without suffering the limp, without suffering real-life consequences, and walk away more able to survive, more able to make better decisions, to live a better life, to enhance their lives. So the Colosseum Effect is a great way when you have first written your story purely to entertain yourself, and now you want to package it for the audience. You want to second guess what will it be like for anyone who reads your story. Keep in mind the Colosseum Effect. Keep in mind, then you can, once you've written the heart of your story, you can in the rewrites, you can put yourself in the viewer's point of view. Ask yourself, what is my reader going through? And the Colosseum Effect is a great concept for deciding what effect your story is having on the viewer. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this helps you improve your writing. If you want to encourage me to make more of these videos, please hit the like button, subscribe, tell friends about it, and please leave a comment if this is encouraged. Any stray thought, write it down, and it gives other people who watch this video a chance to get a little bit more, to maybe find out, have a different view that they didn't get from watching the video. And also, please take the time to go check out my illustrated, narrated, in video form, in series episodes, the story I'm working on called Terrible Immunity. It's at solimation.com. I hope your writing goes great, and I hope you have a good day. As a side note, when people say the news is always bad, why does good news not sell? Because people don't learn as much from good news. That what they do is they learn from all the bad things that happen, and there is a real life benefit to that. People, good news might, and the thing is it makes us feel better to read bad news and learn about what our limitations as mortals are. What about fantastical fiction or horror fiction, where there are things that could never happen in real life? As of today, zombies are not a real thing. So, but why is the same effect happening? Is the same Colosseum Effect happening? Yes, because the power scenarios at play in great fiction writing can be applied to real life circumstances, and we do learn and fare better in our real lives through watching fiction, even if the power scenarios involve unicorns and vampires and things that could never happen in the real world. The power scenarios depicted, the dangerous situations depicted, resemble enough real life situations that occur that we could still use our learning from those enjoyable fiction experiences to fare better in our own lives. And even like the fantastical and the unreal in fiction, there are things about it that beg to make me wonder, why are we compelled by zombies? What is it in real life that makes zombies so popular these days? And I've wondered about this, and it's like, what is it about our society today that makes the zombie power scenarios and struggles and Colosseum effects so compelling to us today? I wonder about it. Is there something happening in our society today that makes us feel like we're gaining so much through getting involved in that type of fiction telling? If you know, please leave a comment, because I've really wondered about this particular thing a lot. Because you can look back in history and you can pinpoint why certain fantastical beasts, monsters, or occurrences were popular at the time. If you look at Frankenstein, you could understand that a lot of the new sciences and technologies at the time were still baffling and frightening to people. And so Frankenstein is the perfect fantastical monster that really represented what people were really afraid of at the time.